can't think of anything else that I could have done that has paid off as well and been as pleasant. The piano and music has been a great asset to us.
There was always music, and Daddy was always playing.
A certain amount of that rubs off, and music is probably the most important extracurricular thing in my life.
I think music is half of your life. It should be anyway. I mean, so much pleasure. You can't really judge how much pleasure most people get out of music.
It's very important.
I love music.
Well, I did a couple of muffs and that, a couple of grapefruits, but that's about the best I can do with it, I guess. I first started taking lessons, I think, when I was about 8 years old. I really didn't care particularly a lot about it. I'd much rather have been playing kick the can or football or something in that line. But in any case, when I first started making a little money at playing with an orchestra for dances, it didn't seem so, it seemed so that I could put up with it, especially when I made at least $2 an hour. And through the music, I made a lot of very nice and long-lasting friends. One of my very best friends, Bill Tooley, was a banjo player. We'd go out and play the Officers Club on Friday night. Bill's a great guy, and his father owned a Cadillac, and he filled the thing up with gas and would go pick us all up, and by the time we got out there and got back, it cost his father more probably than we made. So my uncle, he was on his way to El Paso, and he prevailed upon us with the opportunities and everything in music and every other line we were in Los Angeles. So we got in our Model T Ford and drove to Los Angeles. When we left El Paso, it was in 22, and then I graduated in summer 23 in Los Angeles at Manual Arts High School. I went right from high school graduation to Big Bear for 3 months, and was through a friend, Marla Wimes. He was a trombone player, and his brother was a saxophone player. His brother had the summer job for Lagunitas Inn in Big Bear. From there, I went to the University of Arizona in Tucson. My food bill was $30 a month, and my house bill was $12. About $4 or $5 is all I needed for extras, meal out or something like that. I used to play with a little 4-piece group. As a matter of fact, I got little help other than what I made in music, which was sufficient.
He was very busy playing. He played in an orchestra to get through school. I know he played in a dance band at the Blue Moon, where all the university students went. He was from Los Angeles, and I was from Bisbee, Arizona.
And we had several classes together, but this was the English Lit. Hefner was the prof. And, she had her Theta pledge pin on, and I had my fraternity pledge pin on, and she looked at me, and I looked at her, and I says, what are you wearing up there? She told me she was a Theta. And I said, it's pretty good, huh? She said, yes, it's pretty good, pretty damn good, in fact, I think she said.
He just came from Tucson on the weekend sometime, and I can't remember when he first met my parents.
It'll give you an idea about of the times was that her father rode a horse. He had a horse. So he rode his horse from home to the mines, and then of course, on the return trip, he brought the horse home and tied him up to the telephone pole and came in. He always came out the back and his 6-shooter that he had that he wore, held that up on the hat rack and took his hat off and put it on the hat rack. Babe's mother was really a great person, really.
She was born in Louisiana. My father was born in Alabama, and both families had moved to Texas, and that's where they met. My mother was very, very musical. She taught music. She played organ in the church, and
She had come over here one time when we were here and went to summer school at SC and to take music at the music school at SC.
well, we decided to get married after our sophomore year in college, and we were married in Nogales, Arizona. We came out here, and I went to UCLA and finished school at UCLA, and your grandfather took classes at USC. We lived in an apartment over a candy factory on 42nd Street. Not very luxurious, but rather interesting. And then we moved probably once every 2 years, and while I went to UCLA, and then we finally moved to Westwood.
I did a variety of things to try to get started. And I got a job teaching popular music at the Christensen School of Music down on Grand Avenue. I knew some boys that were in my class in high school in Los Angeles, Manual Arts as a matter of fact, and they were working for a firm in Los Angeles known as Patrick and Marsh. It was a booking agent. So that's all it took. I probably got through that connection, got 2 or 3 nights a week. It developed into a living. They had the contract for the orchestra in the Biltmore Hotel. Earl Burnett was the pianist there and the orchestra leader. But this fellow he just drank too much. He was on the bottle most of the time. And it got to be to the extent that Patrick and Marsh had called me up at 8 o'clock at night and he said, "Earl doesn't make it tonight. Get your so-and-so down to the Biltmore Hotel." In the music business, I mean, you know, it wasn't a lifetime thing. I played with a group in Warner Brothers. That was KFWB on Hollywood Boulevard. I mean, I might have been 3 months there, probably. I was 6 months in the Mayfair Hotel on 7th Street. There was a contract for 6 months. The business was bad at any rate, and they tried to close out the room. But we had a contract, so we stayed on for 6 months. KHJ was up above the Cadillac Agency, and I used to work there maybe every Friday night. They had a program there with a group. At another time, I accompanied a quartet advertising for a funeral parlor, and all there were just the 4 people singing, and I accompanied them. I had been, in the meantime, I had been working on a sideline, what is known as in the motion picture studios. And sideline was atmosphere music for the actors and the actresses. And this was all silent pictures, so the music played right along because there was no sound, you see. And I just fell into it. How I ever fell into this, I'll never know. But in any case, I got myself a portable organ, and we had a team. And I pumped an organ, had a violinist there, and I worked pictures at Fox, and I worked pictures at United Artists, and then immediately sound came in. And that finished that type of work, because you couldn't use that in, well, people were talking anyway, because the music would be interfering, you see. I had been playing with Gus Arnheim's orchestra. They were going to Europe, and I had an opportunity of going with them. So it developed that they made him the musical director at RKO Studio, and he's going off to Europe. So he recommends Howard Lockie to Bill LeBaron. Bill LeBaron is president of RKO Studios, and he's out from New York getting things lined up and everything. So the music department, there was no one in the music department. But they had to try out singers, they had to try out dancers. They brought Pearl Eaton from New York, was a choreographer. Everybody that got a job at RKO Studio I had to be the accompanist for them, whether they were dancing or whether they were singing, and that led to recordings. And I was on every musical that they made over there in one capacity or another. I'm either rehearsing or working with the orchestras or all these things. See? Constance Bennett was the lead in the picture. It was a saloon idea, a Western. But in any case, I was the pianist in the beer hall or in the saloon, and I'm sitting at the piano stool and noodling around on the Western stuff thing, and I say, "Hello." I'm supposed to say, "Hello, Judy. How are you?" Right. So, the line comes out, "Jello, Hootie." What can I? That was the beginning of my end of my acting career. "Jello, Hootie, how are you?" or something. My father, in the meantime, had opened a music store between Olympic and 11th Street on Broadway. Strictly a used instrument store. And he advertised across the front of the thing in bold letters, "Save one half or better." See, my father made it possible for me to go in and have a third interest. He had a partner, and they each had 50% interest in it. The big stores that handled only new products, all the time that anyone would come in there that would want to sell or used instruments, they would say, "We don't handle any used instruments at all. Go down to LOCKIE." See, well, these big stores were keeping us out in merchandise. A. And B, of course, when the Depression hit, and these people didn't own these buildings to begin with, and they had these high rents to pay, and they were folding like you can't believe. Wurlitzer's had to give up here. Southern California Music Company lost a lot of their lines. Burkell Music Company lost their lines. Platt Music Company lost their lines. As fast as these people lost those lines, we picked them up. You know, we ended up with all the lines. I mean, to say that we were terribly successful, it doesn't also prove that any great ability on my part necessarily, except that I played professionally in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles didn't have 10,000 musicians in it. They had maybe 400 or 500 or 600 musicians probably that were playing on the key jobs. I worked all these key jobs. These kids came in, or these musicians, they called me by my first name. They didn't know who the hell my father was, and they knew less who his partner was. And this is the only time I'm ever going to brag about anything to you or ever, or anyone else for that matter. But this company went from a used instrument store, a little hot shop, you might even say, to the leading. We did more business in Los Angeles than the Selmer's factory store on 48th Street in New York. I think it's a wonderful family. We have a son, a great son, and a wonderful daughter. They have some wonderful children, all of them, in fact. 9 of them we have, grandchildren.
And I love them all dearly, and at times I could kill them.
We've been a very close family, and I think really one of the reasons is that their lives, as best I can remember, revolved around their children and their family.
They're all extraordinarily wonderful.
What's the name of this song?
There's the opportunities for instance, were not planned, Howard. A lot of boys today think, young people, figure out, you know, they figure this out. I never figured anything out like that. I mean, maybe I should have. Maybe I wouldn't have done what I did if I had. Through the music experience that I've had, in all phases, from playing to merchandising to manufacturing, I think that music has been very good to us. We've probably taken as many as 10 trips to Europe, and I mean, there's probably not a hell of a lot of people that can boast that. We've been all through South America. We've been around the world. From what else would it come? I didn't rob a bank, Howard. It's a music business. There's 5, 10 fingers, let's say. So that's as much as I'm going to say about the accomplishments.
you.